Let's be clear. Nehemiah was a real man, and the wall of Jerusalem was and is a real wall. And even if we don't realize it, the book of Nehemiah is all about how to build a wall. Granted, it was a pretty big wall, but it was still a wall. When you think about it, there have been a lot of famous walls built throughout history, and they have all been built for different types of reasons. The Great Wall of China was built to keep invaders out. The Berlin Wall was built to keep the people in. The Wailing Wall is a place for prayer. And I could mention the wall on our southern border, but I'm presenting a speech, not running for president. However, one of the reasons the wall on our southern border does or does not get built is because it has been met with opposition. Nehemiah's wall was also met with opposition. When we get to Nehemiah chapter 6, we see that the wall of Jerusalem was 98% finished. The only thing left to do was hang the gates. It seemed like the perfect time to celebrate, but right whenever the project was almost finished, Nehemiah's opponents showed up. Nehemiah's enemies tried to distract him from finishing the project, but Nehemiah's priorities were right where they needed to be. He was not about to let anything keep him from doing this great work. And that is a good lesson for us today. My preacher told me the story about a missionary in China who was offered a high-paying job by an American company. The missionary told them that his work in China was to be a missionary for God and thought that would be the end of it. But they kept coming back with better and better offers until they had finally doubled their original offer. That is when the missionary told them, "It's not your salary that's too small. It's your job that's too small." God has called every one of us to do some great work for Him. We all have a part of His wall to build. It may be building the wall of raising your children in the Lord, or simply being good kids to your mom and dad. It may be building the wall of showing your coworkers on the job, or your friends at school the example of Jesus Christ. It may be building the wall of teaching a Bible class, or learning how to give a speech, so that one day you can teach that Bible class. Rest assured, whatever wall God calls you to build, you will have opposition. The devil will oppose you building the Lord's wall. The world will oppose you building the Lord's wall. Your own selfishness will even oppose you building the Lord's wall. But take a lesson out of Nehemiah's playbook. He says to the people in chapter 2, verse 17, "You see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste and its gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach." Did you hear that? Did you hear the problem before the people? Did you hear the conviction that would stand up against the opposition? The people heard it, and when they did, they responded in verse 18 saying, "Let us rise up and build." And the job was done in record time. After only 52 days, the wall was fully rebuilt. And Nehemiah 6:16 records, "And it happened when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, and that they were very disheartened in their own eyes, for they had perceived that this work was done by our Lord." Back in the beginning, I said Nehemiah is all about how to build a wall. And it is. Nehemiah resolved to build the wall of Jerusalem and refused to be distracted by the people and the things that were in opposition. He simply set his mind on carrying out God's plan and doing it. That is how we build walls for God today. We resolve to build the wall that God desires and refuse to be distracted by the people and things that are in opposition. We simply set our mind on carrying out God's plan and doing it. But a word of caution: when we build up the walls of our faith, we must not abandon what we have worked so hard to accomplish. Rather, let us diligently stand watch against those who would attempt to tear down the great work of the Lord. As the Apostle Paul would say in Ephesians 6:10-13, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, and having done all, to stand." Amen.